Hey everybody, welcome back to the Old Swedes Farm. It's Rich
and Holly.
and
Hi.
Holly. Want to do a video on sourdough. I know nothing about sourdough, and that's why I want to film it. So there is, well, let me see if I can look behind. See the blue lid there, the green lid? I wake up in the morning, come down, and most days Holly's got a starter going. I'm not sure all that's going on. All I know is we've been doing this for
Since December.
4 months. And the sourdough has now, I think, reached perfection. When it started, it was good bread. Now it's got that funk, that sour. It's got personality, and it's bubbly, and it's good. So we're gonna do a couple videos because maybe some of you out here have never done sourdough, and again, teach me a little bit about sourdough. But we're going to talk about, this video is going to be about, what are you making?
I'm going to make some pizza crusts.
There you go.
And the wonderful thing about this is that I can make up a bunch ahead of time and have them in the freezer. So we have a crust ready to go to make a quick pizza for an evening dinner.
Yep. And they're fantastic. And then we'll do another video on just sourdough bread.
Yep.
So let me spin this around and get out of it. So the video is going to get a lot prettier in just a second. So let me spin it around. There we go. All right. So the star of the show with the shower cap on it. So this morning that was probably half that size?
At least half that. I think it was down to here.
So this thing is alive. This is your starter that you've had going since
December.
Okay.
And so what it is it's just a natural fermentation. I read a little bit on how to make it a little more funky and because the different flours will add different flavors to it. And I'd read that rye flour adds some funk to it.
Okay.
So when I feed it, I use it with a mix of like 1/4 rye flour and 3/4 wheat flour, whole wheat flour. And so when I feed it, that's what it gets. So it's just flour and water.
You double that in the morning, or you start it in the morning. It doubles. Now it's evening.
Yep.
Now what are you gonna do to make it into pizza crust?
So the pizza crust, I have a recipe that Chelsea from Chelsea's Happy Home got me hooked on.
Chelsea has been like the queen of
She's
sourdough lately. Check her out on Instagram if you haven't.
Yep. So this is from Little Spoon Farm, and like I said, it's really easy to make up. You mix everything up the night before. You do a fold and stretch after it's fermented overnight.
Fold and stretch.
Which we can get into.
Okay.
And then you can either use it right away, so even if you want to start it in the morning and have it for pizza crust that night, you can do it.
Is that a recipe that is easy to write down and we can put down below?
We can give you the link to the Little Spoon Farm because they've got a bunch of great sourdough recipes and sourdough discard recipes.
Perfect.
So this is great. It's been easy to make. It's turned out great. I've made it, 3-4 times?
Yep. So I need to ask, what's the difference between sourdough and sourdough discard?
So when you make your sourdough, your starter, it's always going to grow.
Okay.
And ideally what you do is you take off a bunch of that and then you leave a little bit in there and you start over with that. So it's a constant change. So what you're taking out, rather than throwing it away, there are other things you can do with it. Okay.
So the wild stuff in there is always, the funk is always alive in the jar.
Yep.
And then you take some off and get rid of it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So, and like I said, I like to make these and have them ahead of time in the freezer. So I'm actually going to double the recipe here. So we're going to take 200 grams of my starter. Sorry, I need my spatula.
Get your magic spatula.
So I've got my scale. I do like, as far as for baking goes, I like to have a scale rather than measuring because flour can be lightly packed or heavily packed. There's a lot to it.
Yep.
So zero this out, bring this on. I'm gonna get my starter in here. Now look at that. You can tell it's got
personality.
It's got personality. It's got a lot of air mixed into it.
And that's all the CO2 from the stuff.
It's fermenting.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're taking 200 grams.
200 grams of this, which might clean out my jar, which is totally fine. That's why I have the second jar going.
200 grams of love.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at
115 right now.
Plop, plop, fizz, fizz.
Mm-hmm.
173. Uh-oh, you're going to use it all up.
Which is fine. That's why I have the other jar. So you can have multiple jars going, especially if you do plan on doing a lot of cooking that day.
Oh, you are darn close.
We're gonna grab into my other jar a little quick. So this was the same starter. I just put some in one jar and some in another.
Okay.
So there we are.
200
We're
grams.
at 200 grams. And this will be used later.
So what do you mix in?
So then I've got, basically this is everything that's gonna go into it right here. We got sea salt, a little bit of whole wheat flour, all-purpose flour, and water.
Okay.
So this will all go in.
How much of what?
So I've got 700 grams of water.
You're doubling the recipe.
Doubling
so
the
200
recipe.
grams to start with of the starter.
Yep, so put the water in there.
700 grams of water.
And like to mix this together with the water.
And this is always my favorite question. What the heck is that thing?
It's
and why is it shaped like that?
Swedish whisk. So, you know, a standard whisk can be a little flimsy.
So show everybody what that thing looks like. Because I'm like, what in the heck?
It's a nice stiff whisk that will help to mix everything together.
Okay.
So we'll go with that, and then you can start adding in your salt. Basically what you're doing is you're getting the starter mixed into everything, so you don't have just a big clump of starter
Okay. And this is salt?
together. That was the salt.
Okay.
So 10 grams of sea salt. I have 100 grams of whole wheat flour that we're going to put in here. And then I have 900 grams, yes, this is all in grams, of all-purpose flour.
Perfect.
So, and yep, we just put it all in there, and this is where this thing comes in.
Would you ever want to use a regular mixer?
No, because it would be too hard on it.
Okay.
Usually you would do this by hand.
Too hard on the mixer or too hard on the...
Too hard on the dough.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to be... So...
Be real nice to it.
Mm-hmm. So mix this all together, and this is where it's nice because it can go through that big opening in the middle, but it's stiff enough that it can handle all of this.
So how long do you mix that together?
Just till it's all incorporated. And then you literally let it just sit overnight.
Okay.
And that's it.
So you're gonna mix it. You're gonna make it into a little ball, as I remember seeing it. Aren't you putting it in a bowl? That's kind of
it'll sit right in this bowl.
Okay.
Overnight.
And double. Mm-hmm. So we got this. We're gonna cut and come back. You know what? We're gonna come back really quick when it's all done, and then we'll come back in the morning.
Yep.
So we'll be right back. All right, I should not have cut earlier. Holly literally went 20 seconds beyond when I was there. So what do you got?
So, and now this is the dough. And that's what's great about this is it really speeds up your mixing. There's nothing left on the bottom. You can just let this sit now. We'll cover it over with a plastic cover and just let it sit overnight.
Okay, we will come back in the morning and it'll be
We'll come back in the morning. It should be maybe doubled that, and we can start making pizza crusts.
It's alive. All right, pizza crust. We'll be back in the morning.
Good morning, everybody. We're back now with our pizza dough crust. As you can see, it's risen quite a bit overnight.
Wow.
Which is great. So we're going to take this, get a little more flour, turn it out onto a floured surface, and we'll start pulling this out. See, it's got lots of nice good
bubbles.
in
a lot
there.
of air in there.
Yep.
or CO2, whatever it's giving off. It's airy.
CO2, yep.
Get all that.
There we go. Get all that goodness out of there. So yeah, we're gonna take this, work in some more of that low flour.
Just folding it over to get.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And
That little hunk of dough last night is now this big.
Yep. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take this and cut it into about 8 equal pieces. Normally you'd get about 4 out of your, if you're going to do like
Just a little taste tester.
if you want, little 8-inch or like 10-inch
Pizzas.
crusts. Otherwise you could do it in thirds if you want something larger. So I'm just going to,
And what's that tool called?
this is a pastry knife, I think. Yeah. So then, yeah. It's just as simple as this.
Okay, so you're taking it, just cutting it in half several times,
Yep.
just to get the right.
Just to get the right sizes of dough.
Why don't you do 4 of them? Show us
Okay.
4, and then we'll.
There we
Actually,
go.
that raw dough is pretty good.
Yeah. So there we go. We'll just keep doing that.
So you got those, and then the next.
And then-
What's the next step you're coming back for?
Then these just sit and sit for another half an hour. Just to do again that final little rise, and then we'll start making our pizza crusts.
All right, we'll be right back.
So now we're down to the final stages of the pizza dough. So earlier we cut them up into individual pieces. So those are my dough balls to work with. Keep them covered just to keep them moist. And then as you're working, you take one on a floured surface, push it out, and then as you can see, I've already made some. So I've got a nice hot cast iron pan on the stove. So put that into there and just kind of work it around to get it in there.
You're not rolling it out on the flour. You're actually just using your hand to kind of make a.
Well, using a floured surface so it doesn't stick.
Okay, but you're not
Yep.
using a rolling pin.
Nope, just using your
So
hands.
how long does it cook on there?
Like 3 to 4 minutes. It'll start changing color a little bit in the middle as it cooks. Usually when everything's set up and not so soft is when I then put it in under the broiler.
Do you flip it?
Nope, that's what the broiler's for. The broiler, we're cooking the bottom side right now. The broiler will toast.
Is there
and
one
cook.
in the oven right now?
There is not.
Oh, there's not. Okay, so it's
So
done
then-
broiling.
Yep, so then once it's done broiling, it comes out. You can see I've got a couple done here right now. And so your bottoms will maybe have a little char on them. So basically at this point,
They're a little fluffy.
they're a
You
little
just kind of push
fluffy.
that down.
Yep, you can just push that down. This one's hot, fresh from the oven. But yeah, then this was the first one that I did.
And these are, I can just say from a taste standpoint, really, really light, fluffy. You can see with it, pillowing up. There's multiple layers to it. It's not just some solid hunk of dough.
No, it's kind of like a bubbly like you'd buy in the grocery store.
Okay.
So at this point, once they've cooled off, what I'll do is I'll put layers of parchment and stick them in a big Ziploc bag and put them in the freezer.
Yep.
So you literally can take them right from the freezer. I like to let them thaw a little bit in case they've gotten out of shape, just so that they're lying flat. Put your toppings on and bake them up.
And then put, fresh homemade pizza sauce on them.
Yep.
And some homemade stuff, and then go.
Yep. So it makes it for a good, quick homemade pizza night.
So if people have questions, the queen, or the coming up queen of sourdough, if you got questions on making this, making pizza crusts, or anything about sourdough, put them down below. If you've made pizza crusts, throw your comments down below. Or if we missed something, or there's a way to improve it, we'd love to hear from you.
Yep. Thank you.